In today's video, I would like to lead off by sharing something with you guys that is absolutely mind-blowing. And it actually goes hand in hand with something that has been going on in my personal life that I haven't shared. Ever since mid to late August, I have been having these very strange bouts with deja vu. As if the things that I'm reading, the things that I'm seeing happening in the world have all happened before. And we're living through it over and over again. Kind of like a Groundhog Day effect, those of you who are familiar with the movie. Has anyone else out there been feeling this exact same thing? I actually have some proof that I dug up from about 40 years ago that shows that maybe we are reliving the exact same events just from a different perspective. Now, real quick, I do want to be diligent. And remember to always say thank you to everyone who shows up here every day, the comments, the support, the engagement. It makes my life so much better, more than you know. And those of you who have continued to step up over at the Patreon channel for the $1 per month, that is making an absolutely enormous difference. I am completely humbled by how many of you have made this sacrifice. It's even less if you sign up for an entire year. We began making videos in earnest on Patreon regularly late last December, early January. So we're coming up on 1 year. So now would be a really good time to join. It's fully refundable, whatever you pledge for the first 90 days. You can look at the content going back almost a year now. Dozens and dozens of videos. And you can perhaps see things perhaps that I missed. And say, hey, remember way back in February, Maki, you said this or you saw this. Look what's happening now. But like I said, fully refundable, lowest allowable level, only 90 cents per month if you sign up for an entire year. Gloves off content. Would love to have you over there. Makes a huge, huge difference. Now, deja vu theory. The believers in this theory claim that the human considering the unsettling feeling of having lived a moment before as a crossover with a parallel universe. This would mean that whatever you're doing while experiencing the deja vu, a parallel version of you is doing it in a different universe simultaneously, therefore creating an alignment between the two universes. I'm not going to discount this completely, but recently I've been talking a lot about the importance of the US dollar and money with what's coming for this country specifically. Housing prices are about to crash. They are raising interest rates like crazy. Once the midterms hit, there are going to be a lot of folks who are going to have a lot of cognitive dissonance, and do not be surprised if you start to see protests and complete anarchy. It's going to be a mess. Mark my words. But thinking about when I was a kid, back in the late 70s and 80s, and some of the things that my parents did to save money. We had a lot of nights where we had potato soup for dinner, where we had grilled cheese and tomato soup. I remember actually going with my dad to get government cheese, bread and gravy. There were a lot of nights where dinner was a little bit Spartan, but, you know, we always had each other. We always had family. Never really thought of myself as poor, but I do remember my parents scrimping and saving. But I also remember a song. Now, this was something that a lot of people associate with the mid-'80s, the mid-1980s, because that was when Hank Williams Jr., the song Country Boy Can't Survive, he won Entertainer of the Year in 1987. Now, 1987 was very different than 1977. 1977, things were not good in this country. The 70s, there were gas lines. It was the Carter years, housing problems. But there's something very odd about the song that a lot of people miss. And I have a couple of tabs up here to show this. The first verse, the preacher man says, it's the end of time, and the Mississippi River, she's a-going dry. Now, how many people online have seen all of the preachers talking about with the whole Biden and Obama thing and how it's the end of the world and it's the end of times and all this kind of stuff. You could probably say that about virtually any time in history. There's always somebody saying this. But the idea of the Mississippi River going dry, that's recent. That's 2022. This is two pictures, 2018 to 2022. Okay, so Preacher Man says at the end of time, Mississippi River going dry. Okay, so that's two things. The next line in the song, the interest is up and the stock market's down, and you only get mugged if you go downtown. The Fed orders another massive interest rate hike. They've done that now 3 or 4 times consecutively. And the Dow Jones is down 10% in the last year. And you only get mugged if you go downtown. I don't think I need to probably get into the details of what is now happening in the cities in North America. Not in the suburbs, not out in the country. You only get mugged if you go downtown. Now, a lot of people are familiar with the rest of the lyrics of the song. Living back in the woods, kids, rifle, shotgun, and the idea of not being part of city life, not being part of, I guess what you would call modern life, actually has some advantages to it. Good old tomatoes, homemade wine, country boy can survive, country folks can survive. This was the song was released in 81. And it got more and more popular as the years went on. I remember it being played on the radio all the way, even 6 years later, in high school, 1986 and 87. But here's the very strange thing. Hank Williams Jr. wins Entertainer of the Year award, primarily on the strength of that song, at the 22nd Academy of Country Music Awards, 22. We're in the year 2022, and he was singing and playing a song on the radio that could literally describe life today. This is from 35 years ago. Did I get that right? Yeah, 35 years ago, with a song that was written 40 years ago. Now, very strangely, we have been hearing about the lunar eclipse and all of these solar events and meteor showers coming this year up on Election Day. Guess what happened in 1982? Syzygy, S-Y-Z-Y-G-Y. All of the planets all aligned on one side of the sun in 1982. And Lisa Haven, once again, 2 days in a row here, absolutely nails it. She talks about this. So it's like, it's very strange to do my research on videos and then go watch somebody who's literally doing the exact same research independently, someplace completely different. And this is a Lisa Haven video. I know we talked about one yesterday, and this is, once again, from today. Something bizarre and cryptic is happening on Election Day. It's literally out of this world. There's going to be not only a lunar eclipse, but there's also going to be a meteor shower. The torrid meteor swarm arrives. You see, there's something very weird aligning with everything that happened in 2020. People bought, in 2020, people bought houses not because it was a good financial time to buy a house. In fact, it wasn't. Prices were going up and up and up and up and up. But the reason they went and they bought during a time when they wouldn't normally buy was because of something very strange that was happening in the world. People were leaving the cities and buying homes at a time when that wouldn't normally occur because of the way the government was reacted to the 2020 sniffles. So now it's actually time to kind of come pay the piper, so to speak. They were buying houses when it was the exact wrong time to financially buy a house, but they did so based on other considerations. Now, I brought up this really strange article from way back when, from the 1970s. More mothers entered and re-entered the labor force during the 1970s than ever before in U.S. history. You see, I've made this allegation as well, that there are going to be people out there that are going to have to make some hard financial decisions about bringing more income into the household and what might be necessary to do it. Two unforeseen developments in the 1970s. The plummeting fertility rate. Have we not heard about that recently? Increasing number of working mothers are bound to affect American family life in the 80s. Fewer women bearing children. But listen to this. Some of the more significant economic changes were two recessions, 69-70 and 73-75. Onset of the highest inflation in several decades. End of the nation's longest war, longest at that time. An energy crisis becoming more evident by mid-decade. Does this not sound... This was from the 70s. What I'm reading to you right now was from the 1970s and 80s. This sounds like it could be right off the headlines today. Among important changes in social mores were society's increasing acceptance of working mothers, delaying having kids, more single, never married women choosing to keep and raise their own adopted children, which was really strange back then. House husbands, broken marriages, widespread discussion of formerly taboo subjects such as living arrangements of unmarried couples. And right now here in 2022, we have more people cohabitating simply because it's financially smart to do so than ever before. It's absolutely insane to read these old articles and realize this happened before. This has all happened before. This is going to be about money. Now, it was only some months ago, and I got a lot of crap for this. I really did. Florida Monkey, you can't talk about moral. Those things you're talking about are immoral. It should never happen. What was I talking about? In South America, I know a lot of people don't understand this. There are a lot of married couples where the wife works, and I'll just say it, works in the sex industry in one way or the other. Married couples. It's a normal job for a lot of people. Now, in the 1970s and 80s, here in North America, the idea of a wife going outside the home a couple nights a week and even, say, tending bar would have been scandalous, especially in the Christian South and the Midwest and in the Bible Belt. It would have been more accepted for a couple who was having a hard time making ends meet, if they had kids, to move back in with the parents of either the father or the mother and live underneath one roof as one big family, kind of like the Waltons. That would have been more acceptable socially and morally in the 70s than the wife going outside the home and earning money in this fashion. And this is just slinging drinks. Now, I know a lot of people like, really? Like, people out there in their 60s and 70s and 80s back me up on this. The women being at home, doing homemaker things, taking care of the kids, the men going out, working and earning. If it had to be under one roof, then so be it. But that was more important. Now that's changed. Now that has changed. Because there's these three things that are starting to screw up people's minds. The idea of good versus evil, which is biblical. Legal versus illegal, which is, of course, government. And right versus wrong, which is basically social. What is socially accepted to be right? What is socially accepted to be wrong? As opposed to what the Bible says or what the government says. It will be a lot about perspective. And I still get this group of people that shows up here And I think this is very important to cover. They say anarchy is a state of society where the only government is reason. You see, the anarchist is the ultimate narcissist because they believe that because they can reason and their little group of people have the ability to reason, meaning use their mind to make decisions, they believe that everybody else also makes decisions using their mind, when that's literally the opposite of what's going on. Everybody is making decisions using what? Their emotions. Anarchy and revolution. They go hand in hand because anarchists are the ultimate narcissists. And they think because they would make the right decision, so would everybody else. And everybody else would leave everybody else alone. And there's no need for government. And that's what leads to revolution. And then they realize, oh crap, 95% of the world is going to start making decisions about what right and wrong is based on how they feel at the moment. You see, they let people look at an image like this, and they're like, oh, I could just never, oh, that would be the most horrible thing. I can't imagine my wife or significant other, somebody doing that to bring in the money, when they don't realize that that's the reality for millions of people in this hemisphere, in South America, in Argentina, in Colombia, in Brazil, in Peru. It's a normal thing. And I'll be like, oh, there's no way I can handle that. It's horribly immoral. How can they live like that? Well, when it's that or be homeless, we've just had the luxury of not having to deal with it. But I think we're getting to that point. See, the entire moral field, the moral goalposts have moved. It's shifted entirely. I know for a fact that if we had ran into that problem in my family, there's no way my father would have ever allowed my mom, ever allowed her to work outside the house. Would have never happened. We would have moved back in with Grandma and Grandpa. Something would have occurred. We would have cut down to absolute nothing before my mom would have been allowed to leave the house. Now there was, at the time, if I remember right, there was Amway, and there was Mary Kay and Avon and all sorts of little different, I guess what modern vernacular would say was side hustles that were perfectly okay to bring in a few extra bucks. But actually going out and waiting tables or slinging drinks, I'm sure in the cities it happened. I'm sure in places like that were more liberal it happened. But back in the 70s and 80s, no way. And I know a lot of you are, based on what I read in my comment section, came from backgrounds where that would have been the case, where you would have been cut down to absolutely no luxury expenses whatsoever, or move back in with relatives before mom would take a second job that would take her outside of the home and put her in any kind of a situation where money hinged on service, so to speak. So anyway, I will leave that there, but I don't know. Is it me? Is it me, or does that first lyric from A Country Boy Can Survive more apply to 2022, given that he won the award at the 22nd ACM Awards, than it would have applied even to when he released it? I mean, look at all the things that they were talking about back then, with end of the longest war, energy crisis, interest up, stock markets down, Mississippi River running dry. How many different things? It's kind of scary. It is really kind of scary, but anyway, I'll leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.